Sunshines, and welcome back to another session. So, in our last session, we talked about the box model to include the content, padding, our borders, and our margin. And it looks like we'll be talking about the box model in DevTools in this section. So, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So, it says here, here's our introduction. All HTML elements are boxes made up of four components: a content container, padding, border, and margin, like we just said. In our box model lesson, we introduced these four properties and use them to position elements on a website. If you have not taken this lesson, we recommend you do so now before continuing. We took this lesson together, and you can find this lesson in the beginner level CSS playlist that I have. Okay, moving on. So in this article, we will introduce how Google Chrome's Dev Tools can be used to view the box around each element on a web page. So first, we can view the box model dimensions with Dev Tools, and we can do this by using Google Chrome's Dev Tools to view the box around every element on a web page. There are a few different ways to open Dev Tools depending on your platform. So for a Mac, you do the Command plus Option plus I, and then view, developer tools, so on and so forth. For Windows, you would click Control Shift and I. So let's try that because I have a Windows device. What is it? Control Shift and I. Okay, nothing happened. Maybe I'm doing wrong. Control Shift. Okay, so it's not working for me. This is what I do to view the dev tools. Let's say, okay, it's telling all my business there. We'll just do it for the Google page. We're going to click the three dots here at the top, scroll down to more tools, and then bring it down to developer tools. And then that's how I get there. But as y'all saw, there was a shortcut, that same shortcut that was told to us with that Control Shift I. I'm not really sure why it's not working for me. But here, see Control Shift I. But this is how we view the developer tools over here. All right. All right, so in this tab, we can view all the elements on the current page. From this view, you can select the elements of interest, which will open up a new column on the right side of the Dev Tools. Select the tab labeled Computed on the top of the rightmost column. So let's go here, and we're already here in Computed, and we can see our box model here. Let's scroll. So the selected elements box should appear at the top of the pane. Hovering over each property of the box will cause the property to be highlighted in the web page. If you know the element you want to inspect, going through all of the steps listed above is unnecessary. Instead, you can right-click the element you want to observe and select the Inspect button. This will display DevTools on the right side of the browser with the element selected in the Elements tab. To view the Elements box, you can select the Computed tab. So if you like some more info or a refresher on how to use Google Dev Tools, take a look at this video. So open up this video. Okay, I will leave a link to this video in the y'all can go and watch this video after you finish with this one. Let's see. So for exercise 1, we're going to view a website's box model dimensions. So complete the following steps within the current web browser view. Number 1, in a new tab, navigate to the Codecademy's Wikipedia page. We're going to go directly there. Then we are going to right click or control and click simultaneously the contents navigation box displayed in the image below. So let's right click. I'm assuming we go to inspect, 'cause I think we just read that. Yep, and there the depth tools are. So that's all we had to do was right click and click inspect. Yep. Select the computed tab at the top of the rightmost column. So here it's at the bottom right for us, and it's already on the computed tab when the dev tools come up. And then we're gonna hover over the different properties of the logos box. The corresponding space on the web page should be highlighted when you do this. Yep, so it's contents. Then if we hover over any portion of this HTML document, we can see exactly what's being coded because it'll be highlighted. Nice. All right, so step 2, we're going to modify box dimensions. So now that we know how to view the box of an element, we'll modify the box's values with dev tools. To modify the values of the box, double-click the property value, assign it a new number, and press enter. You can also adjust the value incrementally by double-clicking the value and using the up or down arrow keys. So we're going to double-click the property value. It's that simple. So right now it's at 60.672. Let's do, I wonder if we're going to notice the difference if we just go to 70. So let's do 80. 80 and let's do 60. Okay, so I don't know if y'all caught what happened to that contents box there. So if you can see it's highlighted, we're just going to double click again. So right now it's at 60. See what happens to the highlighted portion when I do 100 and click enter. So the height increased. We're going to bring it back down. It was around 20. We'll just do 20. And then for the width, and this is just the content. So the width, we're going to change that back to 60. All right, see, it's very, very slight difference, just the content box of the word content here on the page. This is 70. Alrighty, let's go back. So in the image above, the border on each side is set to 1 and the padding is set to 7. These values can be changed by double-clicking the values in the box and assigning them new numbers or using the up and down arrow keys on your keyboard. So let's go back here, see if we can adjust the padding. Okay, so there's no padding here, but let's see if we added padding 3. See, it slightly moved contents over to the right. Let's add it here too. Yeah, so very slight change, but there's definitely a change nonetheless. Awesome. So note, if we inspect an element and find that the border is set to dash, adding a numerical value will not make a border appear. The border color, style, and width must be set in the CSS document in order to see the border. So exercise number 2, we're going to modify a website's box model dimensions. Pick up where you left off in exercise 1, double click the top padding of the element, and then we're going to use the up and down arrows to adjust the element's padding. Observe how the appearance changes on the web page. Change the left margin to 200. Observe how the element's appearance changes. Remember, the changes you make in DevTools are not saved. If you're using DevTools to make adjustments to a personal project, make sure to adjust the values in the HTML and CSS documents. So, like it said, the changes that we make only happen on our local computer. So nobody else is going to see this but us. Okay, so the margin is set to make that 300. there wasn't really much of a change. 300. We're gonna click enter. Yep, nothing changed with that margin. And then when we edit the border, we're not gonna see anything unless we actually edit the HTML and CSS. So we're just gonna stick with the padding. Now that we can see. All right, awesome. I think we've played around in it enough, but if you still want to play around with it, you know how to get to DevTools. But I'll just show you again. We're gonna click here, we'll do it in a new tab. We're gonna click the three dots at the top right. Here, I'm gonna move myself out the way so you can see. Here we go. So we're gonna click the three dots at the top right here. And then you're gonna navigate to more tools. And then at the bottom of that menu is going to be developer tools, or you can click Control, Shift, and I at the same time, and it'll pull up your dev tools. Alrighty. All right, now we can move on. Next. Okay, great. There's a video.
Hi everyone, my name is Alexis and I'm a New York-based web developer. In this video, we'll be viewing and modifying an HTML Elements box model with Chrome DevTools. We'll learn how to use Chrome DevTools to inspect the box model of HTML elements and change the way the element sizes are calculated. Please note that in this video, we're using the latest stable version of the Chrome browser. This means that other versions of Chrome may look differently or not have the same features. And if you're new to DevTools, you also might want to visit the Intro to Chrome DevTools video before watching this. The purpose of this video is to introduce you to the box model and Chrome DevTools metrics pane and computed styles tab. By the end of this video, you should know how to access these Chrome DevTools panes and tabs, use DevTools to view an element's box model and properties, and alter an element's box model via the DOM or document object model. Next, let's review the box model. Some of you may already be familiar with what the box model is. If you feel comfortable with this concept, feel free to skip ahead to the next part of the video where we'll learn to use Chrome DevTools to view an element's box model. Let's review what the box model is. The box model is not a thing that exists somewhere in the DOM or in your HTML document. The box model is a way of describing how the different CSS properties and content work together to help create an HTML element so that we can explain what we see when we visit a website. When we look at a website, it's natural to think of it in terms of content or things that are visible to our eye. The text, images, video, and other things that we can look at. That's not how the browser sees a website or the elements that make it up. Every HTML element is considered to be a rectangular box by the browser, and this is true even if what we can see on the website doesn't look like a rectangle. Each box is made of several parts nested inside of each other. Content, padding, border, and margin. This means that each HTML element you have on the website is made up of content, padding, border, and margin too. You may sometimes hear the innermost box also called the content container since it holds all the content of an HTML element. The last three parts of the box model are CSS properties. If you need a refresher on the various CSS properties here and how they differ, go to the box model lesson. Make note of the order that these concentric boxes are in. They'll always be in this order. They'll also always be present for each HTML element, even if you don't declare them, which is just a fancy way of saying that you wrote this in code somewhere or give them values. More on all this later in the video. Now that we know what the box model is there a way to see the hidden structure of HTML elements the way the browser does? Yes, there is. Normally, we aren't able to see an HTML element's box model in its various parts when we're just browsing the website. But Chrome DevTools has a feature that allows us to take a peek at this. View the box model of HTML elements, open the Chrome browser, and navigate to the website you want to work on. These can be a project on your computer or a website on your internet. Here, we'll take a look at the Code Academy website with Chrome DevTools. We first need to open the Elements tab of Chrome DevTools, which has a stylus pane. We can use a shortcut or combination of keys to open Chrome DevTools. Or you can right-click on your mouse and choose Inspect from the menu. If you haven't already tried doing this on your own, pause the video here and practice opening the Chrome DevTools Elements tab and viewing the Styles tab. Continue watching once you can do so. Now let's check out what Chrome DevTools can tell us about an HTML Elements box model. Chrome DevTools has a specific pane within both the styles and computed tabs of the Elements panel that we just opened, and their DevTools reveals the HTML Elements box model to us, and it's called the Metrics pane. Let's pick an element on the Code Academy website to inspect and view the box model. To see the box model of an element, you can either use the Select Element icon in the Elements panel, right-click on the element we want to learn more about and choose Inspect, or click on the HTML in Chrome DevTools. Once you do that, you click on the Computed tab. One quick tip here, although it's also displayed in the Styles tab, it's easier to view the Metrics pane by clicking on the Computed tab. This tab is also called Computed because the browser has to run calculations as to how and what styling to apply to determine various values and position and flow elements. It should show us all the CSS styles being applied to a specific element and also where each CSS declaration is coming from or the source of the style. This is very helpful to know when we're debugging a website and we're dealing with issues of specificity and cascading. Inside of the Computer tab, we're presented with the metrics pane, which shows us a color-coded diagram for each HTML element we're inspecting. From the diagram, we can see not just the dimensions of the element, but also how the browser came up with them. This diagram gives us the dimensions and pixels of each of the parts that make up an HTML element's box model: the margin, the border, padding, content. This is true even if the values that are used to declare the various properties of an element's box model are not in pixels. Looking at this element here, this is a good example of this. It uses rems and not pixels. And we can see that in the source code here in this tab. But when we actually look at the box model, the dimensions are given and converted into pixels. Lastly, a nice feature of this metrics pane is that once we've selected an element to inspect, we can also hover over parts of the box model and it will highlight those parts of the element on the website itself. Let's take a closer look at some of the values in the diagram. Did you notice that some of the properties of the box model have no value? If no value is assigned to an element's properties or it's undeclared, the result is a dash in the metrics pane. In this example, we can see we don't have any values assigned for margin, top, left, or right. If we don't give value to one of these properties ourselves, say as a CSS declaration in a style sheet, it will either be 0 and we'll see a dash, or the browser might assign a value for. This is in contrast to the content, border, padding, and margin bottom that do have values listed in pixels. One final tip here to viewing the box model of elements. We can see the box model of one element in great detail with DevTools. If you want to see the boxes of all the elements relative to one another, you can add a colored border around all the elements using the already open Styles pane and a CSS tool. To do that, I will go into the Styles tab, and I will select HTML in my HTML doc. I'll use the plus sign for a new CSS rule, get rid of the HTML selector, and use the asterisk to apply it to all elements, and add the rule border 1 pixel solid red bang border. And that will add that red border to all of the elements boxes. So it's helpful to see where they are relative to one another. Although this only lets us see the border of each element and not each of the various box properties, it can be helpful to get an eagle's eye view of our website and its layout, and then use the DevTools metric pane to get more detailed information about a specific element. If you've never modified the styles of a website you're inspecting, I would check out the previous video compared from DevTools for more explanation. So far so good. We've given our HTML element an X-ray, and you can see its box model that's hidden underneath it. And we know from the name of the computed tab that styles need to be computed by the browser, which brings up another question. How are the dimensions of the box determined? There's only 2 dimensions the browser needs to figure out for box size. That is until we get 3D browsing, and that's width and height. And the formulas I'll show you here will show you the calculations that the browser needs to do to figure out the size of the box for an HTML element so that you can render it and paint it in your browser window. To calculate the width of an HTML element's box, we calculate the sum of content width, padding left and right, and finally border left and border right. And then we arrive at the total width of an HTML element's box. To find the height of the box, we calculate the sum of the content height, padding top and padding bottom, and lastly border top and border bottom to get the full height of the box. If we look closely at these formulas, we'll see that one of the properties I mentioned earlier in reference to the box model is margin. Can you think of why that might be? It's because margin generates space only around the outside of an HTML element's box and not inside of it. So margin has no effect on how big or small an HTML element's box is. It'll just change how near or far other HTML boxes around it are. Let's take a look at this example from Mozilla Developer Networks that I really like. And see how adding padding and border will affect the size of an element's box. We have 2 elements here, one nested inside of the other. We'll add padding and border to the inner box. Notice how changing the size of the padding and border of the HTML element will grow or shrink its box and the overall appearance of the element, but it won't change the size of the content. This is because the browser's default display mode for HTML elements boxes is to set every element's box sizing property to content box. In this mode, the browser calculates the size of the element's boxes by figuring out the width and height of the content first. If we need to add padding or border, however wide or high those properties are, they then get added to the width and height of the content. So this means that sometimes the box and appearance of an HTML element is wider or higher than we intend or expect it to be because the width and height here only mean the width and height of the stuff inside an HTML element, which is just one part of the box and not the total sum of all the parts of the box. This isn't ideal because when we start to add padding and border to our elements, they grow bigger or shrink smaller than we expect. It becomes harder to figure out what the width and height of elements should be when we add more styling, and our layout starts to fall apart as the elements shift and grow, just like in the example of a box growing larger than its parent container element that I showed you. How can we fix this? One thing we could do is to try and figure out values for padding and border and width of the content that would make the box fit inside the parent element. For those of you that want to try your hand at solving this problem by changing the width, border, and padding, go to this link there and change the code for any of these properties as long as it has a box sizing property content box. So hopefully if you try this out on your own, you're going to see why this is a problem. If you try and change the padding here, you're going to also have to try and change the border, and that involves a lot of guessing. You may have also tried to change the width of the content to make it fit inside the parent container. You can see that also was pretty tedious and also involved a lot of guessing. Even worse, what if we had many boxes and not just one box nested like this that we had to fix? There is an easier way that not only allows us not to have to figure out all of the values with every single element, and that's simply changing the way the box's size is calculated. In this example, you can see that we've set a new rule. We've applied box sizing border box. This changes the way the browser calculates the size of the box to account for any padding or border thickness. Instead of applying width and height only to the content of an element, with this new rule, width and height of an element's box is calculated to include padding and border. So if we make padding and border thicker, then the browser will make the content grow or shrink to accommodate the padding and border. This makes it much easier to position elements and figure out the layout of a website since our HTML elements now act more predictably. So we can override the style rules that the browser applies, or what's often called the user agent applies, to websites by writing new rules. You could add the rule that I just showed you to your style sheet, but usually CSS rules that override default browser styling are put in a separate style sheet called a reset style sheet. Here's an example of a reset style sheet that you could use. That's reset because when we override the browser CSS, you're said to be resetting the CSS to whatever we want it to be. It's considered a good practice to reset the browser styling and in particular to change the box sizing property to border box. It'll make your life as a developer much easier. Okay, let's wrap up. So using Chrome DevTools allows us to see the hidden makeup of our HTML elements, which helps us better understand how our elements are created and why our layout behaves the way it does. Some takeaways here. All HTML elements are rectangular boxes to the browser. We can use DevTools to view and modify elements boxes. The browser determines the size of the box unless we override it. We should reset the box model because it makes it easier for us as developers. I hope that you either learned something new or that this helped to reinforce what you already know. Let us know if you found this helpful by liking this video. Thanks for watching and happy coding.
All right, I hope that was informational. One. Next. Alrighty, so here it is. We have a project now. So in this project, we're gonna follow step-by-step instructions to fix a fictional restaurant's website. All the HTML and most of the CSS is intact, but the box model properties have yet to be set. You'll use knowledge of height, width, padding, border, and margin to complete the project. The website's existing index.html file and style.css files are displayed in the text editor to the right. As you work, use both to see which elements you are selecting and styling. Most of the elements that you'll need to add styles for already have rule sets in the style.css file to which you can add additional declarations. If you get stuck during this project or would like to see an experienced developer work through it, click Get Unstuck to see a project walkthrough video. Hopefully we don't get stuck. Next. All right. So we're going to go through Davy's Burgers menu item. roughly from top to bottom. Let's begin with styling the nav element containing the logo and the navigation elements. So we're going to set the width of the image to 180 pixels and center the image horizontally using the margin property. Okay. The nav element. So here, this is just an element. All right, perfect. Let's text align. We're going to set image. To 180 pixels. The width of the image? Okay, nav image. All right, so now we're just going to add width, and it's going to be 180 pixels, our semicolon, and then we're going to center it, margin. We're going to center it horizontally. So vertically, top and bottom goes before left and right. We're going to center it horizontally. We're going to do this and see. Here, let's copy that. That did not look right. So for the image, we're going to do this. Then we set the width, the image to 180 pixels. Let's say that. Okay. Then the margin. All right, so that centered, I don't know if you saw that, but that centered our logo horizontally. All right, next we're going to set the margin of span elements inside the nav to 10 pixels on the top and bottom and 0 pixels on the left and right. So nav span, here we go, we're going to do margin. And then this is the two value, vertical, top and bottom are going to go first, left and right are going to go second. So that being said, it's going to look like 10 and 0. All right, do we see what changed here? Let's see what nav span is in our HTML file. All right, so that's going to be menu, nutrition, order, and locations. And that's going to be our content here. Let's go. So we're going to copy this and see if we can actually see a difference. All right, it looks like there's not much of a difference. It's paste back. So remember, we're looking here at the menu, nutrition, order, and locations. Let me move myself out of the way really quickly. Here we go. So we're going to look here at the top right here. And let's run that. All right, not much of a difference. Let's go ahead and move on. So now we're going to set some rules for the element with the class content. This element is a container for all the elements not included in the nav. So let's scroll here for content. This is our class because it's annotated with that dot there. That's how we know it's a class. We're going to set the height. The height to 100 pixels. Do our semicolon. We're going to create a 10 pixel vertical margin and automatic horizontal margins. So we're going to do margin. It's going to be 10 auto. And then we're going to set body elements inside the content to have no vertical margin and automatic horizontal margins so that it's centered. So content body here. We're gonna do margin, no vertical margin, and automatic horizontal margins. All right, so let's run that. Alrighty, and I will just rewind this video just to see what changed here on the right. Next, we're going to, it says with a 500 pixel height for dot content. So let's find dot content here. So with a 500 pixel height for content, some elements will overflow out of its box if the browser window is made too small. So we're going to make the content scrollable with the overflow property. So first, this content is only 100 pixels, so we're going to change that to 500 pixels, and we're going to go ahead and add that overflow there and set that to scroll. Resize the browser window so it's very skinny, and notice that this section is now scrollable. So let's go ahead and save that. And you see now we can scroll. Doo-doo-doo. So let's do the width. We'll do the width. Let's set that to maybe 50 per. Oh, that's not fair. Maybe 50. See. Here we go. So now we can actually scroll. So we're going to change the width back to 100. See? Beautiful. Now it's time to tackle the dot header and its H1 text barbecue bacon burger. So here, so what we're talking about. Barbecue bacon burger. We're going to set the height of the header class to 320 pixels. So here. And it says specifically the header, so height 320 pixels, semicolon. And then we're going to create a 20 pixel padding for the H1 element inside the header. So here, and it's going to be padding. We're going to set that to 20 pixels. And then set the vertical margins to 0 pixels and the horizontal margins to be determined automatically for the same H1 element. It's going to look like margin. And that vertical is going to be the first value at 0, and the second value is going to be auto. Nice. Now that made a big difference. And we can actually scroll. That looks good. Let's check that off. All right, next, step 6, we're going to add some box model formatting to the Order Now button element. So as you make each change, make sure to scroll down if necessary to view the effect on the button. So here we're going to scroll to our button. Here we are. We're going to set the width to 200 pixels. Not PC, pixels. And we're going to set the padding to 20 pixels. Don't forget that semicolon. We are going to set the vertical margins. So we're going to be a margin to 40 pixels. And remember, the first value of the margin and the padding is going to be top and bottom. And then the second value is going to be our horizontal margins, left and right. So the second one, auto, do our semicolon. And then lastly, we're going to give the button a 1 pixel solid blue border. So we're going to do border here. It's going to be 1 pixel solid and blue. All right, so our buttons are down here. Let's go ahead and save it. Let's see what the difference is. Oh, so now we have an Order Now button. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy, take all this out so we can see the difference. See. Okay, so it originally was not a button. So now replace that just so we can see the difference very clearly. Run it. Now we actually have a button. Awesome. All right. Finally, we are going to style the nutrition facts section at the bottom. So in the element selected with unordered list.nutrition, here it is, we are going to set the padding to 20 pixels, padding 20 pixels, semicolon. We're going to set the width of LI elements within so it's going to be the next one. So the LI elements within the unordered list.nutrition class to 200 pixels. It's going to be width to 200 pixels. And then we're going to set the 10 pixel vertical padding and 20 pixel horizontal padding to the same elements. Boom, boom. We're going to be doing padding. And remember that first value is vertical, so it's going to be 10 pixels. And the second value is horizontal, left and right. So that's going to be 20 pixels. Close it out with our semicolon. Then we're going to add a 3 pixel bottom margin to the same element. So that's going to look like margin dash bottom. That's going to be 3 pixels. We're going to close that out with a semicolon. And really quickly, before we run that, I actually want to see exactly what we're going to be editing. Scroll. So this is our unordered lists with our class nutrition. And here are all of our LI elements, so our list items within that unordered list element. So calories. So this is what we're editing down here. Let me move myself out the way so y'all can take a look. All right, so this is what we're editing here in the bottom right of the screen. Now we're going to go back to our style.css file. Scroll down. All right, and this is what we just edited here. And here. All right, so let's run that and see what the difference is. That looks much better. Much better. All right. So we completed that. Good job. So this menu item is looking great. Thanks. And the layout and spacing is much more readable. It's definitely more visually pleasing. So if you like, you can continue refining the design or add your own spin. I think the border of this order now button should be red. Let's try red. I would also like the color here to be red. Yeah, or here. All right. Honestly, this looks all right to me. Maybe, yeah, this looks good to me. All right. Excuse me. Well, now that we completed that, I think that concludes our time together. Let's see if there's a quiz or anything we can complete together before we close this session out. Okay, yep. So this is a completely different topic. So on that note, thank y'all for tuning in, and until next time, sunshines. See y'all later.